So my daughter's electric ripstick keeps having a problem where the rear wheel will not spin. It locks up. And I looked around on the internet and I saw a couple people figured it out, but I didn't see any videos, so I thought I'd make one. If you look down here, you can see there's a nut that is actually, it's become loose. It should be over here on this flange, and it's gotten stuck in the hub of the wheel. So I'm going to go through and show you how to take that apart, remove it, and retighten. Alright, so first thing we're going to do is take off the lock nut. That's that one. There you go. Alright, and then there's a flat washer. We're going to be careful to turn him the same way he came off. And then there's a little lock washer, star washer. And we're going to turn him the same way he came off. And then these are the tools we're going to use. And I'll show you how we take the rest of it apart. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is take off this piece of plastic cover. It's got 4 screws, so go ahead and take those out. Okay, so we got the screws out. They are different size, so the longer ones are here and the shorter ones are here. And then this plastic piece, if you want to lift that up, it's got 2 tabs on it. Alright, very good. So next we are going to take, there are 3 screws that hold this side of the wheel assembly to its flange on this side. We're going to take those off next. So this is a slightly larger screwdriver. Okay, so all 3 screws are out. One's down at the bottom, 2 at the top while it's upside down. And then you'll see the wiring there. That'll all kind of come out together, or should. There we go. So there's the whole assembly out. And you can see this nut is stuck down in there. Okay, so the nut's stuck in there pretty good, and I went ahead and took it probably all the way apart, but I was also curious to see what was inside, so I'm going to go through those steps. You may not have to do that to get that nut back out, but I want to show what's inside of this. Alright, so if you just take this electric piece, you can squeeze it in, this connector, and pull it apart. Like that. And then you can slide this out of the way. You'll see there's 2 screws, one here, one on the other side. I'm going to take those apart, and that'll let this this piece come off. And then I'm going to take each one of these screws around the hub off, and we'll get to look at it's a planetary gear train inside of there. Okay, so we've got this plastic flange is off, and now we've got the screws out for this hub. And let's see if you'll hold that. Now we get a pretty good look at the planetary gear system that this is using. So you got electric motor, a bearing, and then the gears. Okay, so to get this nut out, this is all threaded, and so you're not going to be able to just pull it off. So what you can do is grab a hold of this, and you're going to want to turn it so that it pushes out and rotates off. And if you want to see the inside of it, that's kind of cool. You can see all of it, the gears moving. So we're just going to do that until this whole piece comes off. There we go. And now we can keep on going. And there we go. So that's the gear assembly, the drive assembly. Bearing on the inside of that. And the nut is still in there, so we're just going to pop that out with the screw. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and put everything back together. We're going to put that in. We're going to put this on. And it lines up nice like that. I'll tighten those down. And then I'll put this back on, tighten its 2 screws down. And then we'll put the assembly back together. Alright, so as we were taking this apart, my daughter had a good idea. She said, well gosh, why didn't they put a bigger washer over here so the nut couldn't get into the plastic hub? And that won't fix the problem, but that'll at least prevent the nut from getting stuck inside of here so that you have to take it off. So we're going to add a washer. just to keep that nut from getting stuck in there. And then we're going to put the other parts on, which we had this flat washer. We need to put these on now before we mount everything together. And then it had this lock washer, I think they called it in your assembly instructions. And then we are going to go ahead and mount everything back into here. And I've got to do a little bit more. There we go. Just like that. Go ahead and plug in the electrical connector. This you just got to kind of tuck in the right position, and this guy's got to be rotated over and point down. So we're going to stuff this down into here. Careful not to mess up the switch, I hope. And I'm just going to do a little close-up of that. And then we'll go ahead and add the 3 screws that hold the flange to this side, and then we'll fix the other side. Okay, so you may have noticed the screws that hold the flange in on the other side, they actually had some residual blue Loctite on them, and there was no sign of Loctite on this side. So I am going to add Loctite. I would prefer to have used blue. I don't have any blue, I only have red. Red is more permanent. Usually you need heat to remove it, but I'm going to go ahead and do that since I don't want this coming loose unless we have to replace the motor, in which case I'll put some heat to it. So we're just going to put a few drops of that. Along there. And then we're just going to go back in the same order the parts came off. So we want to do their lock washer, flat washer, and what they called a lock nut, but wasn't doing a good job locking. Okay. Alright, so quick safety talk. The next part, I'm going to check and make sure that the wheel is aligned right, and so I'm going to have the wheel on and I'm going to spin it. And you don't want to have any loose clothing, loose hair around it, something like that would get caught up in here, because that would be uncomfortable, I think. So everything's on. We're gonna... Great, no clicking sound. Now I'm gonna... Okay, so we're going to put the rear cover on. One thing you got to watch out for is, if you look at this tab right here, it's got to go in there, so you got to make sure that the wire isn't in the way. So that should slide in something like that. Then we'll just put the screws back in and should be good to go. Okay, so everything's back together, everything runs, and we're just going to let this sit up overnight, make sure the Loctite dries, and keep an eye on this, make sure it doesn't loosen. If you look at the instructions, it tells you to check every time before riding for any loose hardware, so that's probably why. Hope this helps somebody, and thanks a lot.